In consultation with Dr. Honda, for week 15's discussion, we decided it might be appropriate to explore AIR's recent study released just last spring called A Statement of Aspirational Practice for Institutional Research. The piece puts forward 3 different models of IR practice in higher education and suggests that IR is undergoing and must pursue an evolutionary process in how it's organized, perceived, and practiced on campus. If you were at the recent CARE conference in LA, copies of this very paper were widely distributed and discussed, and it's available for download on the AIR website. I think Dr. Honda will also upload it here for you to read if you like. In this brief video, I would like to describe each of the 3 models as discussed in the article. Model number 1, shown here, summarizes a traditional view of IR as essentially a service provider to a ranked set of clients. The ranked set aspect is important because with it comes the implication that IR offices serve mostly the senior decision makers on a campus with little attention paid to lower ranking units on a campus. This view has IR as a highly centralized function and in many cases struggling to provide reporting and data services to even the small ranked set of clients it is expected to serve. The piece suggests that IR practice that remains in this model will likely have limited growth and will be only very selectively influential because its function is so limited. Additionally, we see fewer capabilities in this structure because the number of lenses, approaches, and perspectives that can be applied by a small, highly centralized team, or in some cases just an individual, in an IR function will be small. Therefore, the available conclusions to be derived from the data may be very limited as well. To move IR from this traditional role of being high priests of data to just a limited few, the most senior people, to being more like coaches and consultants or partners across the entire organization requires a shift to democratizing data and tools across the organization as well. At my institution, implementing Tableau, creating projects in it, and then socializing the output across many stakeholders was seen as the first step toward this new goal. More analytic tools making data more accessible to more people, which would allow traditionally underserved decision makers such as department chairs, individual faculty or faculty groups, research lab directors, etc. It would allow them to essentially establish their own data shops. This leads us into the second model of IR as a federated network in which independent and linked units operate data analytic functions, as you can see in this graph. A possible disadvantage of this model, the authors argue, is that it needs a strong consensus about the goals and process and outcomes, and it can lead to duplication of effort and turf battles. I've already seen this myself as more people outside of IR request desktop licenses to Tableau as they're getting more excited about it. But in building dashboards of their own, they may not recognize that there are certain, say, algorithms or formulas that have to be applied to get correct output. And so therefore, we're not seeing numbers match up, and there's a certain amount of chaos that could ensue from this process. The author of the article argues that a central data and decision support team based on an IT model in which experts serve units and departments across an entire organization on demand could evolve to manage the shift in vision. That's something I think which is really interesting to consider. And then now I'd like to discuss the third model. The third model, so far it seems the preferred future model of IR according to the authors of the article and the people that were included in its crowdsourced idea generation, is a matrix model in which individual employees align with multiple teams rather than dedicated single reporting lines. So in a matrix model, specialists in our different areas, data collection, business intelligence, quality assurance, and other data-related skills are embedded on various teams on an as-needed basis, and this allows talent to be shared across organizational boundaries. The idea here is that units are not burdened with staffing for expertise that may be needed only infrequently. So, leadership in this situation would have to assure that the entire matrix network has the resources and the structure to allow seamless building upon the work of others in the matrix system. And by the way, this isn't a new idea. Ad agencies deployed this distributed account-driven model in the early 2000s, in which specialists from each function worked together in small groups, such as creative, account management, research, digital strategy, etc. A representative from each of those functions would be placed or embedded on a team. That team would work together closely and fluidly, because then after that project, they may move on to something else. In software development, this is called an agile model, so that talents aren't siloed in departments anymore, but instead they're placed on an as-needed basis where they're needed. So it is a different concept altogether. Finally, the article argues that in both the federated and the matrix network models, IR could be more likely to get a seat at the decision-making table that we desire, but we will be challenged to bring additional skills to that table, including well-developed leadership skills, including effective communications and strategic relationship building. It argues that our technical and statistical skills will be less important, though still valuable, and the reason for the latter assumption isn't entirely clear, but presumably it's because we will eventually embed more of our technical expertise in our tools, so that our role becomes primarily interpreting and promoting the significance of data findings. We may also be drawn into applying findings more than we currently are on the implementation side, which I would personally welcome and find interesting. I'm really looking forward to hearing your ideas in this discussion. Thanks.